second careers. The Toastmaster was standing behind the master at a function, and the guest speaker suddenly said to him, "Beadle, Beadle, tell the master I can't speak. I've just broken my plate," pointing to his false teeth. So the Toastmaster reached into his pocket and brought out a set of false teeth. The guest tried and said, no, they're too small. And he reached into another pocket, brought out a second set, which they were too big. So from a third pocket came another set, which were the right size. And just as the master introduced him, so he got up and spoke. And afterwards he said to the Toastmaster, "I'm so grateful that you are in real life that you're a dentist." He said, "I'm not, sir. I'm an undertaker."
Oh,
oh dear. Well, on that frivolity, let's call it
I know that one.
Let's call to order and invite Martin to have his little presentation before we start telling each other what we've drinking. Over to you, Martin.
Well, I don't think much presentation is necessary, because as I imagine most people around here will know an awful lot about both rosé and sparkling wine, but I will sort of launch it by saying that I think this is a lovely idea, actually, to be honest, for two reasons, to be honest, because I think that rosé is a wine that we tend to drink for about 3 months of the year, don't we? It's a rather sort of Cinderella of wines, if you like. It's a sort of summer frivolous wine, except when it sparkles. And I think sparkling pink wines have a lovely air about them. They have a sort of frivolity and a sort of seriousness combined. So I think that's a very nice combination. I mean, I don't think everybody around here will know all this, but I'll say anyway. Obviously, not obviously, but rosé is generally made because the color of a grape lies under the skin. So if you press the grape or do whatever you do, then draw the juice off quickly, you get a very faint, that's a black grape that is, you get a very faint color. You can, technically speaking, add a bit of red wine to a white wine to make rosé, but that's very, very unusual, except actually in champagne, to be honest. I mean, sparkling wines are basically formed into two categories. The big one is, of course, champagne or method champenoise, or, which you can't call it that now, anything made in the champagne way is called method traditionnelle, or whatever the language might be. That is actually known quite widely. And that's made in the same way as champagne, but the champagne growers are very severe in stamping it on anybody who tries, even champagne chocolates they can get excited about, oddly enough. The second way in which you make sparkling wine is, I mean, champagne is made by, you ferment the wine out, you add a dosage, which is a syrup and yeast. You have a second you bottle it, you have a second fermentation in bottle, you disgorge it, take the sediment out, recork it, bingo, you've got your champagne. That's the simplest way of talking about it. The second way, which is very, very common, and I suspect there are a lot of these examples here today, is known as the Charmat method, which is really a second fermentation in tank. So you ferment the wine in the way that you would normally. You then add the dosage, the syrup and the yeast and so on. It then goes into the tank. So in other words, it's made on a much bigger scale. And that's what most of the sparkling wines around these days are, and they're very, very good. I mean, there's a slight difference. In qualitative terms, the method champenoise or the method traditionnelle or whatever tend to be the very best because it is a more delicate process. The atmosphere pressure is slightly higher, actually, between, I think, about 4 to 6 atmospheres, whereas in the Charmat or the tank method, it tends to be between 3 and 4. So they tend to be lighter and more delicate, which actually suits an awful lot of wines from an awful lot of places. So there you pretty well have it, to be honest. Interestingly, champagne, I say you make rosé by extracting the color from under the skin very quickly and drawing it off, except in champagne, and I suspect also in some made in the champagne way, and they actually do add a certain amount of red wine to the initial wine to give it its pink flavor. So oddly enough, the cheapest way of making rosé is used for the most expensive wine. All of this is a bit of a garble, but I hope it's enough for people to be interested in. Now then, I want to hear what you've all got, but I thought I'd get off at the top, maybe the top. I've got a Champagne Dumenil, VA Vin, which comes from the Dumenil family, actually. It comes from the Monte de Reims, and those few here who maybe remember the Champagne trip in 2003 or whatever it was.
I do.
Well, yeah, I do too, actually. We went there and so on.
Did you get skinny dipping there, Joe?
No, no.
No, I didn't go on that trip. It's a special one.
My partner wasn't there.
It is one of the absolutely top regions of Champagne. Interestingly, they do add about 8% to the base wine of pink wine. The Champagne grapes, of course, are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier, two red varieties. They add about 8% of Pinot Meunier to their blend, which gives it its pink look. And it does come from very old vines. The vines they claim were planted in 1956 and are still going strong. But this is anyway their VAV Cuvée. It's a Premier Cru region. And of course, the chalky soil there is quite interesting, as a matter of fact, because that's why a lot of Champagne growers are buying land in southern England, because of the chalky soil you have in Kent and Sussex, I believe. So that's, and of course the climate change means you need a good acidity to make good champagne. Actually, any sparkling wine comes to that. So if it gets too hot, you get too much sugar, not enough acidity, with all the attendant problems. You can still do it, but it's going to be slightly more difficult. Now, that's enough from me, really.
It looks quite pale, Martin.
What?
It looks quite pale.
Am I looking pale? The wine?
No, the wine looks quite pale, is it?
Well, I like a pale rosé. The French call it pale d'oignon, doesn't it?
Yes.
It actually looks rather paler on the screen, I noticed. I love it because it's got a very fine mousse, which I think is very attractive. It's got that lovely, gentle, soft, slightly sort of strawberry and raspberry soft fruit flavor about it. It's got a good acidity, but a ripe acidity, which I think balances it out beautifully. And I wish you could all taste it, but I'm afraid we just have to take my word.
Where is it available?
It's available from Davies. I decided that I could have gone to Tesco, or I could have gone to Adnams, our local wine merchant around here. But I said I would get a Davies because I like them very much. I'm unashamedly associated with them. And the Champagne is very much an area of marketing, isn't it? The big brands. There's a huge strength these days in the smaller producers who used to sell all their wine to the big brands, Bollinger, Paul Roger, Pommery, and so on. But now, of the last 10, 15, 20 years, have begun making their own wine, marketing and selling it themselves. So these boutique wineries are producing, I think, some of the best champagne around, and it is, because it's not branded, considerably cheaper. You pay an awful lot for the branding, quite clearly, because of the huge on-costs that are involved.
Mm.
So that's me. I want to hear what everybody else has got.
So who's going next?
I think you better get Tony before he drinks another bottle.
Well, I found that I didn't have any sparkling rosé, but we've been drinking Italian Prosecco. quite a lot. And so I dashed round to Aldi's and I got a bottle of Castellore Rosé Spumante,
Well, that's sparkling, isn't it?
extra dry, very pale, but it's very, very refreshing.
Can we see the glass, Tony? And the bottle? Can we see the bottle if there's anything left?
The bottle's got a hole in it. Look.
Oh, yes.
Most bottles do, Lee.
What sort of price, Tony?
I don't know what I've done with the receipt, but it's about, I think.
Well, it would be made from the Prosecco. Has to be made from. Yeah, it's made from the Prosecco.
£5.99, I think, Tony.
I think it is. Yeah.
Does it?
£5.49.
On special. That's a dozen.
If it doesn't say method traditional in Italian, that would mean it's made in the Charmat or tank method. But that's very common, and it would be a wine like Prosecco probably benefits from that because the lightness and delicacy of the tank method of production probably suits it better, actually.
Yeah. It's certainly very pleasant to drink.
Yeah.
Joe and Vincent, what are you drinking?
Are you talking to us?
Yes.
Sorry, I was just sort of thinking about this. We're drinking, I'm feeling a little cheated here because I thought the object was not to be drinking champagne, but be drinking some other sparkling wine.
Quite right.
So I would love to be drinking a pink champagne, that'd be great. What we are actually drinking is something called La Folie Rosé. Now I think actually the wine is in the name, and I think the folie is probably foremost. It comes from Provence. We just picked it off the shelf in the shop this morning.
Off the cheap shelf.
Yeah, it had been reduced somewhat. It was still £10.99 a bottle. It comes from Provence. It's certainly made in a tank. What the tank was, I wouldn't like to say. But I think it's very, very thin and lacking any characteristics whatsoever.
So you're not recommending it then?
Apart from that, it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah. It's also lacking a bit of sparkle. You know, you hope you get a little bit of fizz in it, but it isn't. So we definitely wouldn't recommend it.
If you
Add soda water. It'll probably work.
Or just chip it away.
I
Yes.
think that it could. Yes, if you see this on offer, even at £1 a bottle, still I wouldn't recommend buying it.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, the cheap
but
has definitely got to be avoided.
But Martin, it has the name Mirabeau on it. Which is
We're all like that, but I think these tastings are lovely actually because it's not only about what wine people recommend, but also what wines to avoid, isn't it? Really, we've saved ourselves £6 now. 10 pounds.
I
We're
mean,
not going to go and buy that, are we? Really?
no.
Provence roses tend to be very, very nice, don't they?
Yeah.
And Mirabeau is a well-known maker of quite nice rosé, as ordinary still rosé.
Does it say what the variety is, Joe? Probably Grenache, is it?
It's got about 20% Grenache, 35% Syrah, and a few other bits and pieces in there.
Yeah. Classic French mix.
It is actually an English family who make it. They moved out to there some years ago with an interesting name, Cronk. Come across them.
He used to own a chain of garages.
I don't like to disparage the
Well,
English.
That's not a recommendation.
That probably gives you the clue to the tank of.
What sort of tank do you use?
And he was in good old days. They would have used antifreeze. He probably had some left over.
Yeah, exactly.
I suspect they probably have an association with Bassett's by the sound of it.
I'm probably being very tough on them, but it is not something I would ever go out and buy another bottle of. No.
Shall I elevate this a little bit, Martin?
Yes, I think you should. I think you should, Ray. Come on. Let's go a
Okay.
little more upmarket.
Well, we're drinking. We've just drunk. Where's the? I can't find the camera. We just drunk a bottle of Camel Valley. I was first introduced to Camel Valley about 12 or 15 years ago when I was having dinner with the chief executive of the council down in Cornwall, and he knew that I, being half French, had an aversion to English wines, which I'd never up until that point been persuaded of the value of English wines. They always tasted to me of sort of acidity and grass and nothing much more exciting. But I drank a bottle of, we drank more than one bottle of Camel Valley, and I was hugely impressed. So we've got a bottle of Camel Valley Rosé Brut, which is traditional method, Pinot Noir, but grown obviously in Cornwall. It's on granite and shillet, not on chalk down there, of course, but really nice rounded wine, nice color. And the family can't remember it here, but we're opening. We've got their sort of top line rosé, which is their Cuvée Raymond Blanc, which it's a $5 extra. I think you pay for having Raymond Blanc's name on the label, but we haven't tasted that one yet. But the Camel Valley rosé itself it is a nice full pink. It's got a really good good fizz to it, and it's got it's not too acidic. It's got sort of raspberries, soft strawberries. It's a really pleasant.
I must say. What sort of
really,
price is it?
I'm afraid it's $29.95 direct from the winery.
Yeah, well, it would be,
so
wouldn't
it's
it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it has to be.
Quite reasonable.
Camel Valley produce beautiful wines.
Yeah. And it's a lovely site too, where their vines look gorgeous.
I've never actually been to the winery, but you know, I've only drunk their wine. So even though it's 50 miles down the road from us,
Going back a good few years now, probably 5 years, I had the pleasure of picking some grapes in their winery, or in the vineyard.
oh, right.
Isn't it amazing, though?
So that's probably what you're drinking now. I might have used my feet to
I can
crush
see. Yes,
gives that rose flavour.
there's definitely the nose of Richard's feet there on the.
Yes, but what you'd like to know is which colour socks he had on at the time.
Oh, I'm sure he didn't.
Pink, obviously.
Pink,
Never
rosé.
be sure, Ray. Never be sure.
But 20
Sure he
years
didn't.
ago, would anybody have thought we'd be sitting here drinking a Pinot Noir from the granite soil of Cornwall and a lovely champagne style? I mean, it's amazing how English wines have come on, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's astonishing.
Mind you, a lot closer to us, we've got a winery at Winkley, which is really out on the edges of Dartmoor, and they've got Madeleine Angevin, what they call Mad Angie, the sort of Eastern European white wine that some of the growers around here have tried, and that tastes absolutely awful.
Well, it would be Winkley.
If we want to get rid of our house guests later, I shall open. We've got a bottle of their wine down in the cellar, and I shall open that, and I'm sure they'll prefer to go home rather than drink it. So,
What grape variety is it made from?
sorry.
What's the grape variety for your Mad Angie?
Around here they call it Mad Angie. It's Madeleine Angevin.
Never heard of it. Just shows, doesn't it?
It's the wine grower learnt his trade in Hungary. He's a Devonian who learnt his trade in Hungary, and it's grown fairly widely in some parts of Eastern Europe, and I can't imagine why.
Raymond, what are you paying?
Sorry?
Raymond, what do you pay for your Camel Valley?
The Camel Valley, the ordinary rosé is $29.95. The Cuvée Raymond Blanc, which, seeing as we were going to do a wine tasting this evening, I thought we'd try just to see if it is any different. The others have drunk it. Is it any different? Oh, it looks far.
Rounder, softer, and more fruity.
It's a darker colour. That's the Cuvée Raymond Blanc, and it's quite a bit darker in colour. I shall taste it in a second when I've taken the last drop here, but that one is another $5 on top. So we're not talking of a cheap wine, you know. It's relatively expensive even by champagne standards.
Yeah, very.
Master, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking champagne monopole from Heidsieck.
Oh, wow.
Whose,
Wow.
but I have to tell you, it was £1.95 cheaper than the Camel Valley. It was £6 delivered last night by Cardo. It has a very, very good head when you pour it first of all. Martin, what I can't call it a head. That
Mousse,
sounds
I
like
think
beer.
you say.
Mousse.
Good
Thank you. Thank you very much. If I will now demonstrate, if I can, in front of the camera, that you will see a decent mousse appear. And it is actually a delightful champagne. It's the first time I've had Heidsieck monopole. I used to drink when I was much younger, Charles Heidsieck, which is a different brand entirely, same surname. But to describe this is really suitable, so they say on the label, for fish, which surprises me. It also says it's suitable for vanilla. Now, I don't recollect eating vanilla by itself at any point, but it's a very, very pleasant, good drinking champagne. And I have to say that if I was not on TV or camera, whatever you like to call it, I probably would have finished the bottle by now. It is very light drinking.
We might have done too.
It's 12% alcohol by volume, which is, I suppose, about average for Champagne region. And one of the interesting things about this particular Heidsieck monopole is that they don't have any of their own vineyards. They buy in the open market grapes that they choose to use from all over the Champagne district.
Blenders.
And blend accordingly. They don't even claim what the grape is, because I think they change it on a yearly basis. And of course, this is very much as they classify non-vintage. Good health.
Cheers. Linda, what are you drinking?
Oh, what we're drinking? We're drinking.
This one. What does it taste of? Richard, what does it taste of?
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice, but what does it have a berry flavour? What does it taste?
It's definitely a strawberry twang to this one.
Yeah,
and being very posh, it's the vintage reserve that's only available for shareholders of the vineyard. That came out for this special occasion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any, Graham?
What is it again?
It's Chapel Down. It's their vintage reserve. We've got their Rosé Brut,
Chapel Down,
which is a. It's definitely It's come from. This one was East Sussex. The amount of land we bought there, and Pinot Noir, and this I think was 5 years ago. So that's reserved, but they do the normal rosé brut, which is very, very similar, just got a bit more colour to it, slightly redder. And that's the usual one we sell out. It's highly expensive. The normal one's £30 a bottle because it's a good English champagne traditional method. And yeah, we've sold out last year. All the rosés sold within the first 6 weeks of it being on sale. 195 cases.
I've got 100 down in the cellar.
Is it 100% Pinot Noir? Do they make it? Do they make it only from Pinot Noir?
Yes, it's 100% Pinot Noir. This
Pinot
one.
Noir, yeah.
Yeah.
How much a bottle?
The normal rosé is £30 a bottle. Counter-wise, you can get it for £20 a bottle at discount, as through me and a few other people. But the vintage reserve, when it goes on sale, which is very unusual, and it's only to shareholders, that's on £45 a bottle.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure you like it before you drink it, or buy it, I should say.
Yeah.
So we've had it a lot at functions we've been to, not the rosé, but it's quite acidic, fruity and acidic sometimes, but not rosé we haven't had. But we often have
rosé is not very acidic. The normal non-vintage one I tend to find can be a bit acidic. The vintage
really
isn't,
nice. Yeah.
and the Three Graces is absolutely superb. Just as I say, method champagne. And Tony's quite partial to that because we did put a few bottles of that away last time we was out somewhere.
Very, very nice. It's quite
wasn't it?
Barbara, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a very expensive one in a super bottle that I bought in Aldi. It was £6.99. It's got a lovely pink foil top, so very nice. It's made of Chardonnay grapes. It's 12% alcohol by volume. It's pink, but with a yellow tone, and it's supposed to be brut, but it's very sweet at the back of the throat. The glass is our 350th anniversary glass, made by Dartington. So that's what I'm drinking. It's quite pleasant.
Where did
very
it come
sparkly. Aldi.
Oh, it's from Aldi. How much?
I paid £6.99, but you can get it on the web at £5.99.
Wow. But Aldi and Lidl do have amazing prices, don't they?
They certainly
They
do.
do. Yeah.
Darren, what are you drinking?
Me?
Yes.
We are drinking. Well, I'm going to digress slightly because I wanted to give you an Australian one, which is called Bird in Hand. See? But I couldn't get rosé. I did buy a bottle of the rosé, which is actually reduced at the moment at Waitrose.
Oh.
It is fantastic. It's from the Adelaide Hills in South Australia. But I couldn't get those, so I went for a Spanish at Oddbins called Flor. What is it?
Camille de Flor.
And I have to say, and we paid $12.50 or something for it. Fantastic. It's really light, slightly acidic, tastes like a light fruit, light berry fruit. I don't know, not really strawberry, but I don't know if it's got a mousse, which I think only comes from champagne, doesn't it? Oh, there you are. How's that? It's not bad for a carver, I suppose, is it? It lasts 3 seconds.
Does it say what region it comes from?
It's
is it a carver?
Catalonia. So it's made. It's again, it's a carver. Drinking from our
Is it carver?
It's a carver. And it says, I got some notes because I didn't know anything about it. The Oddbins man recommended it. And it's got Macabeo, Paraleda, is that right?
Yeah.
And Zarolo grapes.
Macabeo, yeah. But it wouldn't be carver, I don't think.
And we're drinking tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're drinking from our 150-year-old plus Victorian champagne glasses, which make it taste so much better.
What sort of price is it?
$12.50.
Oh, you said, yeah.
That's not bad at all. It sounds
very reasonable, isn't it?
It's got a little underlying sweetness, but quite sharp. It's really lovely, really delicate, actually.
Very
And
soft,
I've never tried it before. Very nice.
IPM, what are you on?
Well, I'm on high on life as always. Another carver. I thought of the profile of the people here and thought, where would everybody go shopping? So I made a special visit to Asda. It is from Catalonia. The company itself is based in Vilanova i la Geltrú, which is right on the sea, just southwest of Barcelona. And it's very drinkable. I tried to find the cépage. It seems it's Pinot Noir. It's 11.5% alcohol. And it's got very, very pleasant strawberry and raspberry notes. Balance of acidity is very good. As you can see, the colour is very light. And it basks in the price of £5.75 a bottle. And I would heartily recommend it as a party wine to people. It's very, very pleasant. You can see why Asda have gone, you know, with, I guess, their general clientele. It's easy drinking. And if you happen to follow any of the particularly interesting people in the world of wine, there are all sorts of people that comment on it, but Ollie Smith, you may know him, Martin, one of the young upstarts on television these days. I'm not quite sure what his
I don't know him,
but he says it's like drinking a strawberry on an iceberg. So we can all realise why we find him very annoying on television.
Yeah.
But no, heartily recommend it. Really nice wine, very, very good value.
Matt, what do you want?
Really nice to hear.
We've been drinking water.
Matt, what are you drinking?
I've got water down it's Venetian Rosado, which I bought from Tanner's for £9.50 yesterday, and it's light and fruity, and too dry, and it had a nice mousse, and it's really quite pleased. I'm very pleased with it. It's the first time I've tried it. It's very nice, and I've got a baby sham glass.
Well done.
Very retro.
Whilst you're all talking about the different wines that we're enjoying together, I was just going to ask our expert master of wine what I'm going to make from my, if you can see it, can you see that? That's my vineyard.
Oh, really? In your garden?
In my garden, heavily laden. It has over 50 bunches of grapes hanging there at the moment.
Yeah.
Does it show up on the screen?
Not very well.
Yeah, now you put it, yeah, you can see it, yeah.
Not on ours.
So, and that came from B&Q. In the sale, I paid £1 for a rootstock. It's a black grape, a German black grape, and we're really, this is its third year, and it's really, it's stalling itself. So I was thinking I could probably start to compete with Camel Valley or such things.
Or maybe not, Richard, or maybe not.
Maybe not, no.
Well, foot pressed by you, Richard, and have that certain je ne sais quoi, wouldn't it, really?
Well, I can use my feet, and of course, they will add extra value.
Martin Gibbons, what are you drinking?
I'm left out. I'm not drinking at all at the moment.
Oh, you're being a good boy.
Well, my doctor's told me I ought to cut down on my drinking. He described me as a heavy drinker.
Oh,
I think he's teetotal.
Never
so
talk to a doctor, it's a mistake.
I think a heavy drinker, the description is relative.
I'm
Joe
putting
doesn't
my
want to
fingers
know.
in my ears.
And I'm very interested in making notes of what everyone's drinking and whatever, where everyone's buying it from.
Bill, what are you drinking?
Right. I am drinking. I'm drinking a flat wine. I thought I had a sparkling pinko lurking in my cellar. Find it. So I went to the fridge and pulled out a bottle of Curaçao, they call it. Curaçao Rosé from Portugal. I thought of, there's a lot of noise going on. Can anybody hear me?
Somebody's talking going on in the background, and it's muffling things.
I thought of using my soda stream CO2 injector to fizz it up. But because we had an F&GP committee meeting just beforehand, I didn't have time to do so. Well, goodness knows what would have
Oh, come on, Bill. You were late for that meeting.
Yeah, it was on his second bottle, Master. On the second bottle.
But what I thought I'd better tell you something about it if I can find it. Floração, anybody speak Portuguese? No, I think it's floração, is the Portuguese word for blossoming. A nod to the beautiful jacaranda trees that blossom along the streets of Lisbon at the start of summer. Loaded with thirst-quenching flavours of wild strawberry, raspberry and red currant. This is a real treat. With a refreshingly dry finish and crisp acidity, Floração is the perfect rosé for long summer days.
Goodness me.
Sounds wonderful.
We've got to have some of that.
Grapes. I'll tell you the grapes, Castelao, which is obviously a Portuguese grape,
yes,
and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Wow.
12.5% alcohol by volume. And there we have it. And price, $5.99, mix 6 from Majestic. It's been our sort of summer drink, and I spotted it coming on, and I just love the sort of body to it, but the non-sweetness. It is not sweet. It has got a nice degree of crisp acidity, as it says, and a dry finish, and it's a very good summer rosé.
Very good indeed.
I think I won't try and inject CO2 to it and see what it's like.
What about you?
I think with modern wines at £5, it's an amazing price. That's the cost of the bottle, the capsule, the label, the marketing, the carton, the shipping, the duty. I mean, the wine's going to cost next to nothing. It's a fantastic price, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amazing.
How much is duty a bottle, Martin?
I'm a bit out of touch, actually, to be quite honest. I think it's about £2.40 or £2.30 or something. I'm no longer concerned with the commercial side of the wine trade, really. I should know the answer, but I don't. It's around about, I think it's about 26 £26 a dozen or something.
And then there's VAT on, obviously 20%. So for £5 something or other, you're getting a
astonishing. Well, and the VAT.
£2.23 plus VAT.
I mean, the wine costs fractions of a euro, I would have thought. And when I was buying wine, a lot of wine in the southwest of France, I was buying wine at about €1.10, €1.20 a bottle.
And you charged us £25 a bottle, Martin.
More like 30, I think, really. Well,
you also have to think of the middleman, Mr. Clark. Several of them.
What I'm say is the cost of production of wine. I don't know how they do it for the price, quite honestly.
No, I don't disagree.
That on the bottle tells
That's quite interesting, actually, because
I'm trying to say something.
I'm sorry, Bill.
It says on the bottle, please drink responsibly. It also says it's vegan friendly.
Oh, God.
Paul, what are you drinking?
Well, it's interesting. I was just going to calculate something. What many of you don't know is that I was buying wine off of Martin more than 40 years ago.
Oh, dear.
Which is quite interesting.
€1 a bottle?
Well, no, I was still in diapers in those days.
I was going to say more than 40 years ago. Come on.
No, I saw him coming, don't worry.
Well, what I'm drinking is an element of nostalgia, and it's actually the first bottle out of the case. I had the privilege last year to do something that a chum and I have wanted to do for a long time, and that was to drive from England down to the south of France and we did it in October last year. And we left here in the early hours of the morning, and our first stop was Champagne. And we went to Mercier. So I am drinking their Brut Rosé, which it's the first bottle out of the case because I haven't things, and it's really rather nice. It's a mixture of Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, and I think I paid round about 28 euros a bottle for it. It's got quite a darkish colour, wild berries sort of coming over it, and it's really quite luscious. The trip was rather fantastic because from there we went to Bréquenson and I bumped into some friends and we had dinner with them, and then we drove down to Aix-en-Provence. No, we drove to Lyon first and had lunch in one of Paul Bocuse's restaurants, which is famous in Lyon. His restaurant called L'Ouest. We had a fantastic lunch there, and then drove on to Aix-en-Provence where we stayed overnight, and then we continued our journey through the French Alps down to Antibes. Now, this was all done in a Bentley Cabriolet or a Bentley Continental.
Oh, lovely.
And that was the dream. Chris had always said that he'd been down to France as a teenager in an MGB GT, and he'd always wanted to drive down in a Bentley or a Rolls Royce. And he bought the car about 18 months, 2 years ago. He wanted to go not last year, the year before, but I didn't have the time. Or couldn't put the time in because certain organisation took my services and needed quite a lot of care, loving care and attention.
High maintenance person.
Present company accepted. And so we finally did it last year, and it was absolutely magical. And so it was a cheers to that adventure, which was a dream that had been going on for about 30 years. So cheers to
Cheers, Paul.
Cheers indeed, Paul. Paul, can I ask about the glass that you're drinking it from?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't want to bore you all with a rather...
Looks like a Moser.
I don't want to bore you with an adventure that has been happening in the last week or so, but it involves my mother, and we very nearly lost her about a week ago. But she's very much better. And she bought me this glass last Christmas, and it's rather large, and it's got a gold bottom, as you can see it. And I just thought I'd christen it as well tonight because I haven't actually drunk out of it to date. So, as I say, cheers to you all.
Well, let's drink to your mother's health.
Your mother's health.
So it's nothing to do, Paul, with Moser Crystal from Bohemia, is it?
I don't think so. I think it was just something that she saw as an affectation and thought I enjoy having it. She tends to buy me a bag full of goodies for Christmas, and they're all sorts of different things. Some of them are alcohol, and some of them are drinking vessels or kitchen equipment.
But Paul, you've not been drinking this year.
Not a lot, no. But I've been trying to make up for it since.
Poor old Lee's got a head problem by the side.
I have to say that, I don't know if many of you know, I do go to France about every 3 to 4 months on a wine run. And I just pop across to Calais and go to Auchan or the supermarkets for everyday drinking. And my house bubbles are Summer.
Which you all enjoyed on the jolly.
Loire Valley.
Yeah. Loire Valley. And that in Auchan that comes out at about €4.95, €4.57 euro for a bottle, and they do it in rosé as well. And I've served it so many times to people, and I've not yet had anybody say anything less than how delicious this is. And I pour it by the gallon. It's so lovely.
Well, Summer is actually method traditionnel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's a fantastic price given the quality
Yeah.
you're going to get. Really.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you're not paying the UK duty on it. In fact, the last time I went was about the 28th of January, and I got hauled over by customs coming back, and the young men sort of decided to go through the car. They asked me if I'd got tobacco, and I said no. and they said, "Oh, you've got wine. Where do you come from?" And then they proceeded to discuss with me Twickenham Rugby Stadium and what did I think of the rugby.
So, it was a short conversation.
Yeah, I was a bit bowled over. They said, "How do you get on with the traffic when there's a Twickenham rugby match?" And I said, "It's fine." I said, "You know, it's part and party of the thing." But they were more interested in what Twickenham was doing than they were what was in the contents of my car.
How many were you smuggling in?
I usually have about 120 to 150 bottles.
I was talking about immigrants.
No. Any of that? No. But
they don't carry anymore, do they? They don't even bother to count, do they?
They will from the 1st of January.
Well, they probably should do. Well, not sure they will, but they probably should do.
It's quite interesting because we go over in different cars, so I think that throws them slightly, because I think if I went on my own all the time, they would start to question that it was actually for personal consumption, which I could assure them it was and is, but they may not believe me.
And I can confirm that.
Thank you, Martin.
I think the important thing is not to go in a white van, Paul, because if you go in a white van, they're convinced that you're up to no good.
I don't do white vans, Ray. Not at all.
Don't see you in a white van.
No. The time is great because I leave here about 4:30 in the morning, and I get the shuttle across, and I'm home by about 12:30 midday.
Good gracious me.
So it's just like popping down to Tesco's now. We've got it down to fine art.
If you took a bit longer, you could go into Calais and go to Le Detroit or Le Detroit restaurant on the Boulevard de la Resistance.
Yes, dear.
And they're lovely food there.
Yeah, but the thing is, Tony, we do that, but that means an overnight because I'm drinking and driving, and I can't do that.
Cottage Hotel, very cheap, very reasonable, quite pleasant.
No, we do. We either go to, if we're going to go an overnight, we go midday, and we stay either in Hardelow at the Best Western, or we go to, or down onto the coast, or we have stayed in
Monterey?
Monterey-sur-Mer. Monterey-sur-Mer, yeah.
Monterey's quite nice.
But I know Lee has some favourite hotels in that part of the world as well.
Oh, one or two, Master, one or two.
I'm going to come in now because I have another meeting to go to. So I wish everyone good luck.
To see you.
Yes, good. I look forward to our next
Have
meeting.
Have you been to that farm shop again?
I've been once.
Did you find it useful?
Yes, it's quite good. It's not too far from us. It's quite good. Thank you.
Yeah, there's things.
Anyway, I wish you all good night and cheers as well. And bon appetit.
Cheers, Martin.
All right, bye for now.
Bye.
Cheers.
It's almost time now.
Master Everett, would you like to sort of do some closing notes for us?
Well, I don't think I can. It's all been said really pretty well. I just think it's been just such fun tasting the sparkling wines. We've had a range from £5 to whatever, £30, shall we say.
Yeah.
Everybody's enjoyed it, and isn't it just lovely that we have so many English wines, which I think is just, I think is amazing. So I mean, there's endless variety. I mean, I think what I could have said was that the sparkling wine industry, be it champagne or tank method or whatever, is absolutely enormous. I mean, the scale of it is huge. In Australia particularly, actually, they make massive quantities of it. So that the market is very definitely there. And it seems to be what we've proved today is there is there something for everybody. And at whatever price level you pay, if you're careful, you can get a jolly nice bottle of wine. And that's what it's all about, isn't it, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Martin, what was your wine again? Can you just show your wine again?
Jumenil.
Premier Cru from the Chanier-les-Roses in the Montagne de Reims. Lovely chalky soil, and it's a single family.
A grower's wine, as it might be called.
It's what?
A grower's wine.
A grower's wine, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
And what sort of price, Martin?
Well, it's about £36 a bottle, actually. So I mean, it's not cheap, but it is a Premier Cru.
Discount.
Martin, I think there's also another Duménil which has got an S in it. Also a champagne grower.
There might be, but I mean, there are any number of smaller growers these days.
Yeah, yeah. Because I know when you said Duménil, I thought
I've spent many an enjoyable day in a little place I never know how to pronounce, Haute-Villiers.
Yeah, Haute-Villiers, yeah. Where Dom Perignon came from, didn't he?
Yep, and indeed, in the cafes there, absolutely wonderful drinking their local brew. And I have to say, I've been a great champagne fan throughout my life, and I was very sorry that I wasn't able to join you on your trip, Martin.
Well, there you go. We'll have to do another one, won't we, Richard?
Absolutely, yes. And Sue, you've been very quiet, making certain that Martin doesn't drink too much.
Listening to his voice, I hear it all the time, so I feel quite familiar.
No, surely Martin is...
me in a week, I think.
Martin, I'll ask you something. Many years ago, when I was much younger, we had a tanner's wine shop and wine club in Stourbridge.
Yeah.
And I was a member. And they did a day trip to Champagne from Castle Donington into Reims by plane.
Yeah.
And we had lunch at Charles Heidsieck. We had lunch at Charles Heidsieck.
Oh, right, yeah.
There were about 100 of us, I think, in total. We took a plane load. I mean, is that something that would be feasible today if we went from somewhere like City Airport or something?
Well, 100 is quite a lot, actually, Paul.
But if we said 50 to 60?
Yes, it probably would be. I mean, when I took, you know, in my Master's Jolly to Champagne, I was fully in the trade in those days, and you can open a few doors like that. Really.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all things are probably possible. I mean, Champagne's not very far to go, is it?
No, well, I'm just thinking if you could put some feelers out, maybe we could consider it as a day trip next year.
Yeah.
And sort of do it as a sort of a compliment to Richard for his year that he hasn't done very much.
Excellent idea. Excellent idea.
I'll throw the seeds on the soil to see if there's any germination.
Well, I don't have any clout anymore, unfortunately. I mean, when I was a buyer, that was a bit different.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
But you do have a reputation.
Well, that doesn't count a lot, does it? Well,
is that a good thing to have?
Is it good or bad?
Most of it good, I think, Sharon.
I'll come. Definitely.
You'll come.
Right.
Yes, I'll put me down too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Martin and I will have a conversation and see if we might be able to do something.
Can we do it from Manchester?
No, we won't fly from.
Good idea.
London City.
The thing is, we will have to charter a plane. That's the problem.
Yeah. Actually, it's probably a lot cheaper to charter a plane than it is to fly from London City, because the price of most flights out of City Airport are, in my experience, pretty high.
Not go out to somewhere like Southend or Norwood.
Not necessarily.
Well, there are planes sitting around doing nothing, aren't there?
Absolutely.
At the moment, yeah. And there's a lot of champagne houses that, in fact, are not picking their grapes this year.
I don't want to do that.
We're not picking grapes.
No.
There's a lot of champagne houses that are not even going to pick the grapes.
Do I have any volunteers to come and help me with my bondage?
Yes,
We'll be there.
We'll be there, Richard.
We'll be there.
Right, I'll have you on it then.
Does Jane know about this?
What, the bondage?
Yes.
Yes, she was my picker last year.
Well, I mean, if she's going to have all these pickers coming down, she's going to have to feed them.
Arriving, expecting lunch, Master.
Yeah. Well, that's not a problem. You can have some grapes. And with French bread, a little époisse, peut-être.
Your son-in-law. Your son-in-law can provide food.
Yes, that's very true.
Idea, yes.
He can. Yes, yes. Quite a chef. Yes.
Make it a family affair.
Anyway, Martin and Sue, can I just say thank you? Thank you, really, genuinely. Great fun. You've looked after us brilliantly. And can I just also try and compete with Paul, who said he bought from you 40 years ago? Can you tell me, Martin, how long ago it was that the Katz family bought from you?
Well, I should think probably about 70 or 80 years. Right. When I joined your dad was a customer of ours, and I inherited him through a chap called Vivian Armstrong, who was our sort of main salesman in those days. Yeah, lovely connection, Richard. I loved your dad, as you know.
That was very sweet of you to say, and I still have, as I think I've told you before, some of that wonderful old rarity whiskey that is no longer available. And it's sitting in my cellar, which is actually a garage now. But I have a lot. I owe you an awful lot, you and Sue, and thank you very much indeed.
Well, cheers to all of it.
I think cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, Bill has to have the last word as usual.
I just wanted to ask Martin, I've opened the Davies website on Sparkling Pinkos, and I'm just wondering what he thought of the Guggenheim Sparkling Rosé Extra Dry from Tupungato in Argentina.
Well, I very nearly produced it tonight. In fact, it was a toss-up between that and the Dumenil, actually. It's a cracking good wine. Guggenheim is an extraordinary, from Argentina, an extraordinary vineyard, actually.
Right.
It's amazing, tremendously good value. It was a toss-up between using that or this.
And there's also a Crémant de Loire Rosé Brut from Domaine Langlois Chateau at 1639.
Well, that was very nice too, but I mean, they're quite a number.
The Guggenheim would be the one, yeah?
Guggenheim is a very nice bottle of wine.
What's the price, Bill?
The Guggenheim is 12.30 case gift.
Yeah.
And is Guggenheim the Guggenheim family?
No, it's owned by somebody whose name I can't remember now. He's a very rich man who bought it, but he absolutely loves it. He's put a lot of not just money into it, but expertise and energy and marketing techniques and everything else. It's a cracking good estate, actually.
Sounds
well. We should all try it.
Absolutely. On that note, everybody, I think it's time to go for.
Good night.
Thank you so much, Paul, for organising it.
Thank you.
Martin,
well done.
Thank you for a great evening. Lovely evening.
Lovely evening.
Brilliant.
Stay safe.
Well organised, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, Paul.
Stay safe and well, everybody.
Keep safe.
Good night.
Bonne nuit.
Safe journey home.
Bonsoir.
Safe journey home.
Au revoir. À bientôt.